Here we are. This is 13 Minutes. I'm Elliot Reeves, and my guest today is Gavin Neate. Gavin, how are you?
I am, all things considered, absolutely fine, considering hairstyles and all the rest of it that are all gone out the window since I got involved in this lock-in thing.
You look great. You've still probably got about 6 weeks until that gets out of hand.
Dude, it's all been slicked down and back. There's probably about a foot of it behind me.
A big rat tail down to the floor. Love it. So for anyone that's watching who isn't familiar with you, maybe just a quick introduction as to who Gavin Neate is.
Guide dogs for the blind for 18 years, trained guide dogs, trained people how to use guide dogs. 2011, invented the world's first pedestrian crossing operated by smartphones, and then realized that I needed to leave guide dogs in order to make the world better with an understanding of tech that was going to really help disabled people. And it just seemed that I had knowledge from my experience in guide dogs that was going to really help me do that.
Yeah. So what's the latest in Neatbox these days?
Well, the latest is kind of insane, but a little bit of a brushstrokes to sort of start us off.
Sure.
The pedestrian crossing is basically a mobile phone operated pedestrian crossing. So if you're in a wheelchair or if you're blind and you get close to a pedestrian crossing, your phone presses the button for you, which is fantastic if you can't reach or find the button. And that was great. We had towns installing that, and that was quite popular. Not massively popular because it's niche, but popular nonetheless. And then we had an app that was a customer service app, which meant that when somebody walked into a building, a disabled person walked into a building, the people inside the building knew exactly who it was based on the fact that their phone had location services turned on. And it meant that if somebody was disabled, the customer service team knew exactly how to interact with that person. So that's led us up to probably January, February. And then COVID-19 came along, and it changed the dynamic of the company dramatically. In fact, I haven't been busier in my life.
Wow. That's incredible.
It's been a bit insane. So if we just look at those two items, you've got a pedestrian crossing that's operated by smartphones. It means you don't have to press the button at a pedestrian crossing, which means that disabled people don't press the button, but you don't press the button. I don't press the button. I just walk up to the crossing and my phone presses the button. Now, if you consider the amount of potential cross, if you get close to a pedestrian crossing, you press that button, there's a very good chance you're going to catch something if somebody else has pressed it. But let's just transpose that onto doors. If you come up to a door and you hold onto a handle and you open that door with your hand, well, there's a very good chance you're either going to leave something behind or pick something up. Whereas next to that door on many, many buildings is a disability access door, which has a button, which you have to press, which we put our hardware into, which now opens purely because we walk towards it with a mobile phone.
Yeah.
The disability access door has suddenly become the everybody door. Which is just insane. And welcome the customer service system. Disabled person goes to shop, person in shop knows who they are before they walk through the door. COVID-19, we've got people queuing outside shops. We've got 13 million disabled people in the United Kingdom and 75% of those have hidden disabilities. So when they go to queue outside a shop, the people inside the shop don't know who it is that's queuing and don't necessarily how to interact with that person. And in the press, there's been loads of stories about blind people. They can't manage that distance between other people. They have to expect other people to manage that distance. When they get into the shop, they can't get sighted guide, which is what they might have got before. So the potential there is that the people in the shop know when somebody has a hidden disability or a visual impairment before they even get to the shop, so they can actually either give them the food that they've already put together or indeed can get the person to sit and wait somewhere out of the way of everybody where they can get the food for them. Yeah. And both these products don't exist. So it's just like we've just found ourselves in a situation where, wow.
Yeah. I mean, presumably an advantage that you hadn't actually potentially foreseen.
It's interesting. When I first looked at the pedestrian crossings, I wasn't thinking about the idea that you would catch something from the button, but there's a tactile cone underneath, and I always worried about that. We never talked about it because we didn't want people to suddenly not use pedestrian crossings. But now we need people to think about it. You need to be really, really mindful of everything you touch. Wash your hands. Well, actually, you probably don't have to wash your hands as much if you don't have to touch things as much. You certainly, if you're touching things you haven't washed, you should be then going, God, I can't touch my face. But if you don't have to touch things, Precisely. Then wash your hands. Other things. So we can help a lot of people. We can really truly help a lot of people. And the challenge for us is to get this message out there.
Yes, yeah. Great stuff. So this has been an incredibly challenging time for everyone, the whole lockdown situation. How have you personally been managing yourself during this time?
It's not. I haven't found it challenging at all. My entire
That's
team all work from home. The guys, we all use Slack. We keep in touch with each other. So there's no hassle at all. I'm doing way more meetings than I did before. People don't expect me to go to London to meet with them. I don't have to zip off around the world. I was chatting to people in America the other day. Not that I would have traveled to America, but I'm actually way more efficient than I was before, and actually doing so much more. And if you talk about it from a personal point of view, yeah, I've got my table set up with absolutely everything I could possibly need. But every single day, in fact, 24 hours a day, I'm seeing social media stories about disabled people either having to put themselves down as vulnerable, or if they can't fit that criteria, then they then have to think about, well, how am I going to get my shopping? I can't go out, or I've got children and I can't go out. And I'm thinking, this is terrible. And these are people, the vulnerable people are people that if they catch it, then they're in serious trouble. And you can't help but not think of that as, yeah, I like having WhatsApp stories and messaging and getting my mates together for Zoom. And that all feels really kind of a little bit flippant when we know there is a serious issue. We can all retreat into our own cocoons and then feel safer. But the truth is, there are people out there who were vulnerable before COVID-19 came across, and they are doubly vulnerable now. And the people who weren't as vulnerable, they're doubly vulnerable now. And every day they're out there, and we need to be able to try and find ways to help them and support them.
Yeah, absolutely.
Every day I think about it.
Yeah. So, I mean, on the back of this COVID-19 crisis, in what way do you think the world might change?
Certainly for a while, we're going to be way more mindful of what we touch. That kind of is the physical stuff. We're going to be much more aware of the fact that if you sneeze, or if you're next to somebody who sneezed, that, whoa, you've got to be a little bit, and that will get our nerves clanging a little bit. It's like being in a car crash. The next time you get in a car, your adrenaline's pumping a little bit when a certain thing happens. And I think that's going to happen for a certain amount of time. As far as society is concerned, lots has changed. I was chatting to guys from UK Active the other day, and they were talking to me about the sport industry and the fitness industry, and they say just like there's something like 96% of people working in that industry are furloughed right now. That's not going to come back straight away. In fact, customer service in general is going to have a problem, because those people weren't in jobs that were going, yeah, I love this. This is minimum wage. These people are being paid. So that when they're now thinking about going back to work, this might be the time they go, I'm going to go somewhere else. I'm going to work somewhere else. That job's gone. Yeah. So we're going to have a world of untrained people all going back into work, because we're going to need these people, but they're going to be untrained, and that's going to be a massive challenge for society.
What advice or insights would you give to anyone who is at home at the moment and just having a really, really difficult time with this situation?
Communicate with other people is the top one. And I don't mean WhatsApp group or Zoom chats with 8 people on. Find people that either you feel might be living in a similar situation to you, so that you can actually confide in them, if it's a best friend or whatever. That is good. That's good internal stuff. But also find other people that are in a worse position than you, or could be in a worse position with you. Reach out to them in some way and actually help them in some way, because that will make you feel better about the situation you're in. You'll be like, no, I'm actually helping. Me being here means that I can help somebody else. And that's a really great way of dealing with it. And at the end of this, when we get back to having this society that we had before, I just hope that there's for a little while anyway, because humans always go in cycles, I just hope for a little while we've got better community within the groups of people that we've made within this time.
Excellent. Where can people find you, Gavin?
So neatbox.com is the website, but people can get hold of me at hello@neatbox.com, which is NEATE box.com, but also on Twitter at Gavin Neate or at Neatbox, and all the other social media stuff, or just follow that link that you've got. One of these places just somewhere. Yeah, there'll be things somewhere. I don't know. Everywhere, straight across my face. I don't know. Put it somewhere.
Is there anything that we haven't covered that you would have liked to cover? Anything you want to say is closing words, closing wisdom?
Yeah, man. When does somebody get to interview you?
Well, that's a good question. No pressure.
I'll come back and interview you. If I could just shut up for a minute, then maybe that would be a fantastic thing to do. Be safe, guys. Wash your hands. Think about doors. Think about the innovative ideas that are out there that potentially are going to be the things that are going to be where we put a lot of our energies. And be nice to each other. That's the most important thing.
Yeah, 100%. Couldn't have said it any better. Just before we wrap up, cool. Gavin, I've loved speaking with you. This has been an absolute pleasure. Continue to do the amazing work that you're doing. Look after yourself.
No stopping me, man. You too. Keep it.
Pleasure. Cheers, Gavin. Speak to you soon.